Welcome back to another episode of RE Squared. We are your hosts, Ari Lev and Ari Berkowitz, coming to you on a Monday, kicking off the week right. Because what better way to start off your week than listening to or watching an episode of RE Squared? Lots going on. We got a great episode coming up for you guys today. But before we dive into the episode, guys, remember, please go ahead and give us a subscribe on YouTube. Give us a follow on Instagram. You can find us on all the podcast networks. Please share, comment, like, leave a 5-star review, and help us grow the community as always. Now, Ari, I feel like this is the last time I'm going to start off our pod this way, but congratulations on your Knicks. What a run, man. Knicks in 5, baby. And it was, as a non-Knicks fan, and then I want to hear from you as a Knicks fan. As a non-Knicks fan, seeing the parade that by 7:30 in the morning, they have to ask people to stop showing up. There were over 2 million people there, and it really felt like it united the city and gave hope to all the New York franchises about winning a championship of their own, and I think was an inspiration for teams across sports in general. So, Ari, as a Knicks fan, let us all know how you were feeling.
Well, just pure jubilation. I've never experienced this in my life. Not just for the Knicks, but any team that I follow, I've never seen them win a championship until last Sunday. So, I mean, from that standpoint, it was amazing. It was one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. And just an incredible ride, an incredible journey, incredible team. And I'm very grateful to have finally had that experience.
All right, excellent. Well, Ari again, and we will not be talking about the Knicks. Probably much more on this. What? Why do you look so sad?
What?
You made a sad face when I said we're not going to be talking about the Knicks anymore.
Oh, I did not realize. I apologize.
So for all of our listeners who can't see Ari's face, Ari looked all of a sudden very sad at the prospect of not talking about the Knicks. We are a football podcast when all is said and done. Of course, as other things come up in different sports that I think, we think are cool. Of course, we can mention and talk about them. And when one of our teams in one of the other sports goes ahead and wins a championship like the Knicks just did, certainly an honorable mention. But we are a football podcast, and let's get back on that. So let's kick off the pod today, Ari, with some news and notes around the NFL, including 2 different players getting the bag. All right, so we'll start with Jeffery Simmons, DT, on the Titans, and I mean, wow, a hell of an extension. 3 years, $105.8 million. And I think one of the most telling parts is not just that number, but the fact that 100 million of that is guaranteed. Interestingly enough, the only 2 DTs in NFL history to earn contracts and extensions over 100 mil, both went to Mississippi State. They, of course, being Jeffery Simmons, who just got his extension, and the other one, who is it, John? Who would it be, Ari? Who's the other one?
Albert Hainsworth.
Nope, he did not go to Mississippi State.
But didn't he make $100 million as
yes, but not guaranteed. I'm talking about the 100 mil guaranteed.
Oh, guaranteed. Oh, off the top, I was too down. Who is it?
Chris Jones.
Oh, that's great. That's a great one. Yeah,
they both went to the same school.
I forgot that he went to Mississippi State. That was so long ago already. Wow.
Yeah, so there you go. So it's pretty impressive. Well deserved. That goes without saying. And congratulations, Jeffery Simmons. Really, really, truly well deserved. He's been arguably one of the best DTs out there. And it's interesting, I'm spitballing literally as I say this, is, people spoke about Dexter Lawrence, and arguably he was certainly one of the best DTs. Nobody, not the Giants, and for that matter, not the Bengals after, trading for him, nobody's given him this kind of money. And so that something, that does say something. I don't know if it's his off year last year. I don't know if it's because, he had gotten an extension and this would be his next extension. The fact that he does seem to have, injuries every year. But I do think that both Giants and Bengals reluctance to sign Dexter Lawrence to an extension of this nature does say something. I don't know what it says, but it says something. Before we move on to the next big extension, Ari, your thoughts on the Jeffery Simmons extension?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is I'm pretty sure that Jeffery Simmons would be my number one defensive tackle in the NFL.
Agreed.
Or very close to it. He's just absolutely dominant in the run game, and is a hell of a pass rusher from inside as well. He's multi-dimensional and phenomenal. And so basically, it's very interesting to me because I remember the 2019 draft very, very well. And it will surprise a lot of people to know that Jeffery Simmons was actually the 5th defensive tackle taken in that first round. The guys who went before him were Quinnen Williams, Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, and now I'm forgetting who Ed Oliver. Okay, Ed Oliver. Now, what a lineup of defensive tackles. But I mean, Ed Oliver may be top 10, top 15, but every single one of those other guys has either been top talent at his position in any given year and is probably a top 7 defensive tackle, top 8 right now. So,
well, aside from Wilkins.
What do you mean?
Wilkins is not currently on a team. He was cut by the Raiders, and there are a lot of stories swirling about him.
Oh yeah, fine. So not right now, but I'm just saying.
No, but he was definitely when he was in
Miami. The dude had 9 sacks as a defensive tackle. In 2022, he had almost 100 tackles as a defensive tackle, and in 2021, he also almost had 100. Unbelievable production. Yeah, his personal stuff and whatever. If he was in the NFL though, and playing to his talent level, he would be a top 8 defensive tackle is what I should have said. So yeah, it's a crazy. And so Jeffery Simmons, who went 5th out of all of that group, even though to my estimation he was the best defensive tackle coming out of that draft, even ahead of Quinnen Williams in my opinion. And I wasn't happy that the Jets ended up with Quinnen Williams so high when they could have gone Jeffery Simmons. It's because Jeffery Simmons was injured. He had a terrible leg injury, and everyone knew that not only did he not complete his last season in college, but he would miss almost all of his entire first year in college. It just goes to show you how taking a bet on that kind of situation and late in the first round, what kind of rewards it can produce. So happy for Jeffery Simmons.
Absolutely, and agreed. All right, moving on to our next huge extension. And I think it is a brilliant move. It was a brilliant move when they originally signed him to the contract. And this extension just makes all the more sense, is Patrick Mahomes signing his extension, which is just, the numbers are insane. They reworked this contract. He is now signed with the Chiefs through 2033, which means that's 2 years post them moving to the new stadium. The new contract was signed at $504.75 million. With incentives, it has the ability to go all the way up to $5.22 million. This now gives him the highest average contract at $63 million a year. And it is just absolutely wild. Now, what I think is genius is, again, the way this was signed back in the day when they first signed him to the 10-year deal, and the way that they've been able to use it as a form of reworking, the fact that they got their guy. And the thing is that if you really think about value, think of the fact that Dak Prescott, who, again, good quarterback, right? Think of the fact that his cap hit and this average, that's where Dak's at, and Dak is nowhere near the quarterback that Mahomes is. So the fact that they were able to do this is just really, 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 really smart when all is said and done. What's wild is the fact that this ultimately, the new money on this deal is $239 million, which is just absolutely wild, all things considered. So congratulations to Patrick Mahomes. Well done. Arguably the best quarterback in the game today. If he can continue to play at the level that he has and can continue to stack Super Bowl wins like he has, he will eventually be in Brady conversations, but he's not there yet. So congratulations to Patrick Mahomes, to the Chiefs, and to, of course, all of Mahomes' family. Excited for him. Well-deserved. He's a hell of a QB. And obviously, we'll talk more about the Chiefs later on when we do our AFC West breakdown. So, Ari, thoughts on this extension?
I mean, I think you got it completely covered. I don't have much to add past the fact that it's great for the best players, just like we talked about with Jeffery Simmons, to be making a lot of money. It's great for them. It's great for the sport, and well-deserved.
Excellent. All right. Before we move on to our next planned segment, something came out this week that I've been meaning to get your opinion on. And of course, for our listeners, Ari does not know what I'm about to ask him. But I saw this come out. I'm like, oh my God, I need to know Ari's take on it. So reportedly, supposedly, Woody Johnson said that he is strongly considering separating the Jets from MetLife Stadium and the Giants and building a new stadium in Long Island and really actually making the New York Jets actually the New York Jets as opposed to a team that plays in New Jersey. I don't know if you saw this report or not. And even with or without seeing the report, Ari, what are your thoughts on this? Good move, bad move? Would you like this move? Tell us as a Jets fan what you're feeling.
I'll tell you more than anything what comes to mind, and I had this feeling a few years ago already. I think Woody Johnson is very, very ready to sell the New York Jets. I think it's time. And I think this is going to be his final play where, when you're that wealthy, it's not a matter of time. Like it's timing it right for the most bang for your buck. So if you're going to sell it now, I'm pretty sure that a couple years ago when he hired a team to look into options to selling, he was basically looking for $10 billion, which at that point was unheard of. And if he got anything less, he wasn't going to sell, which is exactly what happened. If he builds this stadium, all right, so in a very a conservative estimate, right? If it's not even the land deal hasn't even happened yet. We're talking about 2031. Very, very conservative. It could be 2035. And basically we're talking about Woody Johnson. I think now he's close to 80 years old. But basically, yeah, he's 79 years old. And what I would think is that if the Jets had their own stadium, and obviously it would be state of the art, somewhere between 2031 and 2035, they could, set the market once again for sports franchises. Again, we have to take into account that by then it will be legal to gamble in most places in New York State. And there could be a whole casino deal around that, or a whole area that all of that. And we could be talking about a watershed deal of maybe even $20 billion for a brand new stadium. And I'll tell you what it will pivot on. It will pivot on if Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, and Geno Smith could do anything at all this season. If they can show that this team is on the right trajectory, and some kind of land deal is done, and the Jets have 3 first-round picks and was widely being considered the best first round in the last 2 decades, and if all of that is going in a certain direction, maybe on the promise of it, Woody gets $15 billion next year. So that's all I think this is. Would it, as a fan, would it be great? Yeah, I was all for the West Side Stadium when that was supposed to happen. So yeah, it's very cool, and it's time to move off of the shared stadium idea. I get it for big cities, but like LA has been doing it for a few years. New York, come on. We're big enough to have, if the Yankees and Mets, which in baseball it's just impossible. If the Yankees and Mets shared a stadium, I mean, like, people would be up in arms. Like, it's time to separate this. Like, everyone knows the Meadowlands is Giant Stadium. It will always be Giant Stadium. It's time for the Jets to get their own brand.
And it's true.
Yeah, of course it's true. That's just how it is.
All right. Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I saw it come up. I meant to message it to you. Didn't work out. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get your thoughts on it.
I love it. I love it. That was great.
Okay. All right. So let's move on over to our next segment. Just to tell our listeners or our viewers, depending on where you're getting RE Squared, what we're doing is we are continuing with our top ranked players. The position we went with today is cornerbacks, and now I am specifically saying cornerbacks because this is just CBs. This is not defensive backs. This list does not include safeties on it. We will, of course, at a later episode get the safeties as well, but today we are going to focus on our cornerbacks. And the idea behind it is that we have, much like we did last week, we ultimately went with a consensus list that Ari and I built together. And again, guys, we're open to feedback. So if you like it being a consensus list, or if you prefer to hear from us that you want us to each make our own list, we are definitely open and are happy to give our listeners what they want and crave. So just let us know, drop us a comment, give us feedback on that, and we'll be happy to do that. All right, so Ari, do you want to start us off with the lowest tier of cornerbacks?
Yes, and I just want to add that for this week, doing corners, and next week doing receivers, we're doing like a teens list, whereas we tried to contain it to 15 guys. This group it ended up being 16, which you'll see why in a second. But basically, because of the amount, wide receivers and cornerbacks today is pretty much 3 starters. And so we didn't think that it would be right to do just 10 guys, which we were doing for other positions that, again, have, about 60 something starters, and these spots have 90 something starters. So that's why we have, we'll contain it to 15 or 16 guys, receivers, again, very deep. But the cornerback class is just growing and growing. And with that, we'll start with, a list that's heavy on the last 2 or 3 drafts. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just agree with you that it was the past few drafts. I was just saying, yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. So with that being said, in tier 4, we got Christian Gonzalez coming in at 16. I know a lot of people will be a little bit surprised to find Christian Gonzalez, who's obviously built up immensely in the media more than anywhere else as, this glove in coverage. And I'd like for anyone, and I'm a Jets fan, and you can say, oh, this is you hating on the Patriots. I ranked the Patriots and Drake May so high because I genuinely think that that's their talent level. Christian Gonzalez, I've seen him play, and I've been blessed as a Jets fan, one of the few things, to see excellent cornerback play. And Christian Gonzalez, does he have the chance to do it? Is he sometimes like that? Sure. Is he consistently a blanket cover guy? No, he is not. So that's why he's at 16. It was a very tough call with our 2 guys before, and we decided to have him in this tier 4 with DJ Turner, our 15th guy, who, again, recent draft pick, is just continuing to improve. And again, like I'll say about Christian Gonzalez, anyone who hasn't seen DJ Turner, he shows flashes, and more so than Christian Gonzalez, of a shutdown capability that, with the addition of Christian Wilkins and with what the Bengals have going on at linebacker, with their pass rushers who they've drafted in the last few drafts, if they can materialize, we could be looking at an outside chance of a top 10 defense with what they have going on, which could be very, very cool. DJ Turner there and Dax Hill there. And their defense, it's just not what it was under the early Burrow years, and it's starting to look more like the second phase of Manning's career with this defense, when all of a sudden everyone's like, since when do the Colts have a sick defense? And that's what it's looking like. And so, DJ Turner is one of the underrated pieces of that equation. And then at 14, we got Nate Wiggins on the Ravens. He had an uneven year last year. The year before that, he was absolutely phenomenal. He's extremely young. He is long. He is quick. And he just looks like the prototypical next Ravens shutdown corner to take, from who was it? I always get confused between Marlon Humphrey. Was that the guy?
Yeah, and yes.
It looks like he's going to take the mantle from Marlon Humphrey and be that next Ravens shutdown. So that's tier 4. 3 young guys, all showing potential, but have had little bits of, I don't know if, this looks, so we'll see if they can all put it together completely this year and, play at a Pro Bowl level for an entire season.
And look, what's going to be interesting to see is, the fate of both DJ Turner and Nate Wiggins. And what I'm referring to is this. Let's take DJ Turner, for example, the Bengals. Burrow recently said in an interview that the vibes he's getting from the Bengals of this year so far feel like the championship team that he played on at LSU. And so DJ Turner, especially now with, the additions that they've made on their defense, Dexter Lawrence being among that. And when you have a stronger D-line, that helps the corners look even better. So I feel like DJ Turner has the ability, on the merit of an improved defense overall, to raise his game even more and make his way up this list for next season. Nate Wiggins, on the other hand, and again, this is not taking away from his individual play, it's going to be interesting to see, does he take a step forward now, no longer in the Harbaugh system, or does no longer being in the Harbaugh system, does he now take a step back? So it'd be very interesting to see, even though we have Nate Wiggins above DJ Turner, it's going to be very interesting to see after the season, A, which one of them ends up above the other, and B, how much up this list do each of them go, or is it possible that, we see one of them fall out of this list because of, especially I would say, leaning a bit more towards Wiggins. Who knows what he's going to be like in the new system? DJ Turner staying in the same system with improvement. So that would be my thoughts on the bottom tier here. So Ari, why don't we move on to the next tier? Take it away.
Sure, and I'll just add briefly that Jesse Minter really had his corners play up. Not really known guys like Tarheeb Still was just absolutely phenomenal in the Minter system last year in LA, and we'll tier 3. We have a rookie from last year who just he blew me away. Upton Stout for the 49ers. It's like the 49ers have done it again, where they take a mid-round pick, and just after half a season, the first few games, he looked all over the place. It wasn't, if you saw him stretch run and in the playoffs, the guy is one of the best nickels already in the NFL, and he is obviously for me a top 13 corner right now. Already surpassing his teammate Lenore, who had a down season last year, but he may recover. But Upton Stout is just a phenomenal corner. Anyone who saw him play in college knew that, but a lot of doubters, doubted his size and physique and how that would translate to the NFL. After 1 year it is pretty clear that it translates, and he will be on a short list of guys who are going to be, in the Pro Bowl conversation all season for corners in the NFC. Moving to number 12, we got Cooper DeJean. And what can we say about nickels who are just all over the place? It's hard to watch an Eagles game at this point without, seeing Cooper DeJean. And it's actually very interesting to me because Quinyon Mitchell is going to be a little bit higher up on our list, is more like the type where he kind of takes his receiver out of the game and you don't really notice him, and he's like a behind the scenes guy, and that's also a tribute to how good he is in coverage. Whereas Cooper DeJean is just all over the place, making plays in the middle of the field, making plays on the ball, and he's just a very fun player to watch. Ari, I know that as someone who watches him twice a year and has seen him grow into what he's become, I know that you definitely have a lot of what to say on Cooper DeJean.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I do want to start out by saying is that one of the most impressive things is the fact that he is a white corner, which we really do not see a lot of. And to be able to play to the level that he does, he's a thumper. I mean, you see that guy tackle, like it hurts. And, I think back to his rookie season where the Eagles won the Super Bowl and the fact that he had an interception in that Super Bowl. And I thought that was like, here we go. Like the fact that they were able to draft both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the same draft and have them instantly make an impact. And, that just goes again to Howie Roseman just being probably the best GM in football, if not top 3, if he's not the number 1. And Cooper DeJean, and I hate to say this again as a Giants fan, it sucks that we have to go up against him and Mitchell twice a year. They're hell of a corners, and they're going to go ahead and give us headaches, for unfortunately many years to come.
Well said, Ari. And just anyone who doesn't know his numbers, the guy had 16 passes defensed, 93 tackles, 2 interceptions. I mean, it's wild. And honestly, by the way, and if you know the answer to this, please let me know. I could not think of any other white cornerback to play in the NFL in my lifetime, at least as a fan. Does anyone come to mind for you?
So no, not offhand. I know there was someone else because I remember when they were talking about him coming out and he's getting drafted. Oh, he's the first starting white corner since, and I forget who the since was, but it's definitely not a common thing. And it's not like he is an afterthought who rides the bench, who's like the 8th string cornerback who barely makes the team every year. He is an impact starter, and it is very impressive to see what he's doing. And again, as much as he is on the Eagles, I do commit to his play, and he's a hell of a player.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating considering the fact that we're going to have another white corner a little bit higher up on our list. And the craziest part is that they actually went to the same college. I believe that the last white corner in the NFL was actually on the Giants.
Yes.
There you go. And now you know who I'm talking about. So you break it, Ari. You break it.
I don't remember the name. I'm not going to lie. I now remember, as you mentioned, I was like, yes, he did actually play on the Giants. But I am not remembering his name.
Yeah. So the guy's name was Jason Sehorn.
Yes. There we go.
He was a Giant folk legend for quite a few years. And he was very, very good. He had excellent numbers throughout his long, illustrious career. And only in his last year with the Rams did he move to safety. So the last time there was a white cornerback in the NFL was 2002 until Cooper DeJean was drafted a couple years ago. So that is a wild thing to know because literally every other position, whether it be, the obvious ones like quarterback, kicker, and punter, or, wide receiver offense, there is no other position that this kind of parity exists or even close to it in the NFL. So to go almost 22 years without having a white player at the position is straight up wild. It's straight up wild.
Absolutely. And let's move on in terms of our next player on the list. I believe the next corner we're going to talk about is actually the oldest corner on this list, if I'm not mistaken. And, something that stands out about the list, and we'll talk about this at the end, but just because Jalen Johnson, who is the next corner on our list, the corner is, if there is a position in the NFL that is a young man's game, and I would say a really young man's game, it's going to be cornerback. The ability that, we see them come through, but it is very rare to find a starting corner over the age of 30 in the NFL. And that, definitely goes credit not to Jalen Johnson. I believe he's 29.
He's 27, and there's one older guy on the list, but just one.
Okay, my bad. But we can see think of the fact that he's the second oldest guy at that age. So impressive player nonetheless. Like what he's doing, and it's impressive that he's even on this list at all, given the fact, again, that we know that it's such a young man's game. It'll be interesting to see if he continues to progress forward. I do think that he is playing some of his best football. I think last season he had one of his best seasons ever. I do contribute that to, Ben Johnson and the defensive system that he's brought in. But let's see if he continues to ascend, or if this is going to unfortunately be that time in a corner's career where you start going the other direction. So those are my thoughts on Jalen Johnson. Anything to add there, Ari, or you want to move on to our next?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Ari, and I think that it's definitely time to move on to our final player in Tier 3, which I have as Brandon Stevens on the Jets. And this is like very, very shocking revelation to whomever saw Brandon Stevens in the first 6, 7, or 8 games of the year, and he was just getting beaten over the top every single game, and I wanted to kill myself. And all of a sudden, toward the time where they decided to trade Gardner, but it really happened a game or two before, he was I think top 3 corner in the NFL according to all metrics, and you can see it. Like I tried very hard not to, but I ended up seeing too many Jets games, and Brandon Stevens was the definition of a lockdown corner when he was on the field in the second half, and he's just that good that he is, just outside of the top 10. And I'd like to see it again, but based off of the fact that he's always had the physique and the physical attributes to do it, and looks like he finally put it together under Aaron Glenn, maybe he'll even get an interception next year, but we'll see.
It's funny you say that, because when you say Jets corners, and we have both Brandon Stevens, who is a Jets corner actively, we've got Sauce Gardner, who was a Jets corner, and I just have to bring up again, and you did it for me, but I'll just reiterate it and point it out again, the fact that despite having a head coach who was a former cornerback in the NFL, the Jets went on to set a record that literally cannot even ever be broken, because you can at best tie it, where they went an entire season with a big old fat donut. 0 interceptions, and it's quite wild that that's where we're at.
I think that the Jets open up the year on the road, if I'm not mistaken, but I can just imagine.
Yes, because the Giants are at home, so yes.
There we go. So and there's even a chance, if I'm not mistaken, that they have their first 2 games on the road. But no, they're okay. So they play the Packers in MetLife in their second game. I can just imagine if they don't have an interception in game 1, which, for all intents and purposes, it is possible, it isn't possible. It is probable, it isn't probable, rather. Imagine their first interception of the year happening in game 2 against the Packers. MetLife is going to cheer in the most sarcastically awesome way possible. That it's going to be some kind of sight if that happens. So, that would be quite the scene. But I don't see the Jets' lack of interceptions lasting much more than 2 or 3 games. And if it does, all bets are off, Ari. All bets are off. So with that, you want to inaugurate our tier 2 for corners?
Yes, let's do it. All right. So coming in at the bottom of the tier 2 would be Trent McDuffie of the Los Angeles Rams, was of the Kansas City Chiefs prior to the beginning of the season. Hell of a corner. And I believe, if we, much like we spoke about DJ Turner having the ability to, enjoy the spoils of having a hell of a D line in front of him. I mean, my God, did any team improve their D line in the way that the Rams did with the Miles Turner trade? And
Miles Garrett.
Yes, him. And I don't know why I messed that name up, but Miles Garrett. Oh, because I said DJ Turner right before that.
Exactly.
So with the addition of Miles Garrett, and I am confident that Aaron Donald is going to join the Rams this season. It might not be for week 1. He might wait later on in the season. It might not even be till closer to the playoffs or for the playoffs themselves. But I do believe that Aaron Donald is going to come out of retirement. And then at that point, the corners are going to just be able to literally pull out lawn chairs and just sit, because how are you going to stop that D line? How? It'll just be impossible to contain everyone. But even with that, I think Trent McDuffie is going to ascend to a whole new level, because if there was a bit of a Achilles heel at time on the Chiefs defense, it was, aside from Chris Jones, who was really rushing the passer. And so it was quite, it was quite incredible to see exactly, just how it's going to be, how incredible to see how much more he can ascend. And I think we're going to see Trent McDuffie crack the top 5 this coming season after playing with that kind of line in front of him.
Yeah. Well said. And we all know that the talent is there for Trent McDuffie.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to our next one. Ari, go ahead.
So coming in next is Jamel Dean, the elder statesman on the list.
Yes, that's right. He is older than Jalen Johnson.
The wild age of 29 years old. The guy has been a lockdown corner for the last 5 years now. And anyone who just wants to turn on a Buccaneers game, I mean, they back to the days that they had Sean Murphy Bunting and Carlton Davis. He's just been phenomenal, and shockingly has never been selected to a Pro Bowl. And I just want this to go on the record by the fact that his completion percentage against last year was under 50%. Okay. The total amount of yards against him was 424 yards, which was what he's been doing for years now. And, he just is the definition of a lockdown corner. Obviously, the past few years, he's been slowed by injuries. He has not played a full season, close to it, which is limiting his production. He's only in the high single digits of passes defensed. And he never usually, he hasn't ever gotten more than 3. He had 3 interceptions last year. He's never had more than 3 interceptions because he's such a lockdown. Teams shy away from him. But if you ask any opponent specifically in the NFC South, they'll all say, we are going to the other side of the field with Jamel Dean on the field. So that's why he's there. He is just a hell of a football player. Will he last? Who knows? His injuries scare me, but that's why he is where he is on the list. Hell of a football player, so underrated and well deserving of the spot.
And do you know who he has a chance to catch an interception from this year? Michael Penix.
Oh, there we go. He does, and I'd love to see that happen.
Me too. All right, moving on to our next corner on the list. Back to the Eagles we go with Quinyon Mitchell. Again, hell of a corner. And he has just been so consistent, so good since joining the league. He made an impact. There's some players who take time to kind of get acclimated to the speed of the game. And Quinyon Mitchell just walked right into the NFL, and he was like, yo, I'm here. And again, impressive that both he and Cooper DeJean, and as good as Cooper DeJean is, the fact that Quinyon Mitchell is even better than that is just, as impressive. And I mean, my God, when the Eagles selected him, like, seriously, like, how do we go ahead and get that level of play? They always seem to get their draft right. They always know how to move up or down the draft board with trades and really get some of the best players out there. I would say the only, and I'm stepping away from Mitchell himself for a second here, but I would say is the only whiff that Roseman's ever had was when they went and selected
Jalen Reagor.
Yes, Jalen Reagor probably ahead of taking Justin Jefferson. That would be the only whiff that I could, put on Howie Roseman. Whatever. Okay, maybe a few others, but that was probably the biggest, most impactful one. But getting back to Mitchell for a moment, hell of a corner, and he is just ascending. He's going to get even better. And do I think he's going to be top 3? No. I think his sweet spot, and is probably what's going to be throughout his career, he's going to be in that top, I would say his ceiling is top 5. I don't think he's ever going to be like top 3 or the top corner in the league, but who knows? Let's see how he plays this season, but definitely a hell of a corner. And again, unfortunately pays for a division rival, and we need to face him twice a year.
Absolutely, Ari. That's a hell of a way to wrap that up for Quinyon Mitchell, which moves us into our top 6 with Riley Moss, who is
not a relative of Randy's.
No, he is not. He may be his father, but we have to do some DNA testing on that. I mean, Riley Moss being Randy's father, just as for joke's sake. Riley Moss, the second white corner on our list, and the second white corner from Iowa on our list. Again, like a guy that just came into the NFL and is making this kind of immense impact, being, I think it was top 3 or top 5 in passes defensed. And I mean, what kind of onus are you putting on a player by having him play, across from Patrick Surtain? And the fact that he can then end the year with 19 passes defensed, which again, it was top 3. It could have been best in the league. Just absurd. So yeah, did he let up a lot of yards in coverage? Of course, but like he was attacked 120 times. Just for example, Quinyon Mitchell was targeted 80 times last year. Riley Moss was targeted 50% more than Quinyon Mitchell. So it's crazy. So yeah, he has a lot of passes defensed. His coverage numbers are a little bit skewed, but he's been improving every single year and playing in that defense. And to me, he's just a bona fide top 6 cover corner, and he's just going to get better. And that defense is scary.
Oh, absolutely. It was scary last year, and I think it's going to be even scarier this year. And I do think the fact that they added Waddle on offense, which is going to make their offense more explosive, put up more points, it's going to be easier for their defense to pin their ears back and just go feast on the quarterback. And I think that's going to lead to even higher numbers. And yeah, Riley Moss, if you think about the tall task, yeah, you play opposite the number 1 corner in the league, you're going to be taking a lot of fire. And to be able to go ahead and do what he did, and yes, did he give up yards? Sure, he did, but that kind of comes with the territory. He showed improvement game over game throughout the season. And what I think is cool is the fact that, Cooper DeJean, the fact that, in Iowa, they decided to, take a chance on a white corner, and then kind of it opened their eyes to saying, yo, you know what? Maybe there are some good white corners out there. So I feel like Cooper DeJean paved the way for Riley Moss, both at Iowa and then again in the NFL, that, you know what, hey, the white corners can actually play. And so it's cool that they will be kind of linked like that. And yeah, Riley Moss, I think we're going to see him ascend. And if he can continue to ascend the way we see it, like, where are you going with the football against the Broncos? So that's definitely going to be a problem, without a doubt. All right, take us to our next person. All right, go ahead.
Next on our list, we got Kamari Lassiter, and just the same idea as with Riley Moss, being opposite of, again, one of the best corners in the NFL, and we'll get to both of those guys very briefly. Just phenomenal. I think he's in his second season in the NFL, and he's already, again, doing things like 17 pass breakups and 4 interceptions, and the completion percentage is even lower than someone like Riley Moss. And you have to watch this guy play. He's almost as good as Derek Stingley, and that is quite the feat, especially in just the second year in the NFL. Kamari Lassiter is a good bet to be a lockdown corner for years to come. And his only bugaboo last year was the touchdowns, a little too many touchdowns. Okay, again, it happens, but the completion rate was there, the yards were there. He looks the part. And did he run out of steam a little at the end? Probably. But just all things considered, he looks like he's coming into his own as the second lockdown corner on the same team, which is wild.
Well, my favorite thing about Kamari is the fact that you cannot spell his name without Ari. So
there we go.
And that would be my favorite thing. But all kidding aside and puns aside for a moment, I think the fact that, if you really think about one of the biggest differences between year one and year two for any player in the NFL is the fact that the offseason for a rookie is the combine and pro days and the drafts. And then so when they come into that training camp, you're really only kind of getting acclimated into the NFL at that point, versus when you're coming into year two, your entire offseason is now not getting my 40 time up or getting my long jump up or preparing for my pro day or preparing mentally for all the interviews that I'm going to go through and all the medicals, etc. You can literally in the off season, get in the gym, get in the lab, go to work, strengthen what you need to strengthen in terms of if you want to be more explosive, if you want to be stronger. And then the way you roll up at report for the year at OTAs in year two is vastly different than what you do in year one. And I'm confident that with Kamari being able to enter into the offseason like that and putting in the works with whatever coaches he has, both on the team and off the team, will help clean up some of those, touchdowns he gave up last year. And yeah, he's going to be a hell of a corner for many, many years to come. All right, moving on to our top 4 corner. We did have some debate exactly where on this list he should rank, but ultimately we went with your ex-boy over there, Sauce Gardner, and I think that he needs to come back from injury, and he's got to play well. He's got to play up to his pedigree. The Colts gave up a hell of a lot for him. And if he's either injured, gets off a slow start to the year, or just isn't able to pay back up to his level because of the injury, that is going to ultimately end up being a trade that they regret, especially given the amount of draft picks that they gave up, especially knowing that they gave up their first rounder in next year's draft in the 2027 draft, which, as we already know, and you had mentioned earlier, Ari, is probably going to be the best first round that we've seen in like 20 years. That pick has a hell of a lot more value than other picks would. So Sauce has really got to get, and I hope he does. I like him as a person. I think that, he brings a lot of personality. He's good in the community. And so I really hope that, Sauce Gardner is able to come back from injury and really play at the level that he has the capability to be and get himself back into the top 3 and rival up there for the top 1. I hope he's able to do that. I really hope he is, but this is definitely going to be a season where, no pun intended, he's got a target on his back in many, many ways.
Yeah, and it was a little bit shocking to me as a Jets fan. Obviously, all the injuries in the second half, but it was even when he was on the field, just seeing him, he just didn't look the same as he did with the Jets. And I don't know what it is. Like, everyone obviously is rooting for him, and he has as good of a chance going into any season to be the best corner in the league in that year. But I'd like to see it happen. And the price, and this is one of the reasons why we did it like this. You know, the first guy and the last guy in tier 2, and it's just fascinating because Trent McDuffie cost the Rams, you know, maybe less than half of what the Colts gave up for Sauce Gardner. And it's a little bit shocking because you look under the hood and you're like, okay, well, yeah, Sauce Gardner, he has that swagger of a top 5 corner, and Trent McDuffie has that swagger of a top 10 corner. But like, would you really give up? So like what, the 16th pick this year as opposed to the 20-something pick that the Chiefs had got for McDuffie, and then another first next year. So like, that's a little bit of a wild difference for not that big of a gap. Like, whatever you want to say about it, it's not like a 60% gap.
No, definitely not.
2+ time. You know, I'd rather have Trent McDuffie and the one next year than Sauce Gardner, frankly. But yeah, let's let him show us all that, you know, what he did in his first 2.5 seasons still in there.
All right, excellent, which now moves us into our top tier. And, you know, every one of these players, from the minute they stepped onto the field, they absolutely just made their mark, made their difference. And I would say while our top player on this list, you know, stood on his own, I would say that, you know, players 2 and 3 in a way were, you know, if we could have been, we would have done 2A and 2B as opposed to 2 and 3. And they are just all incredible players at the top of their, you know, position. And, you know, we don't even need to deep dive into exactly, you know, all what they've done, because their play just speaks for their own. So I'm just going to really quickly just run through their names. None of their names should come as a surprise. If any of our listeners are not familiar with who these guys are, then guys, like, you are not watching the NFL. No offense. And so our top 3, number 3 is Devin Weatherspoon. Number 2 on our list is Derek Stingley. And at the top by himself is Pat Surtain. And every one of these guys deserves the top 3 that we gave him, deserve the contract extensions that they have all signed. And they are the epitome of what a top cornerback in the NFL looks like. They all deserved their first round picks where they were all picked. And I was happy to see that Pat Surtain, while it wasn't a large amount of money, you know, the Broncos did reward his continuing to be incredible play, and they threw a few more million on his contract for him and gave him the ability to earn some more money, and rightfully so. And I feel like, you know, you've got to do right by your top players. And, you know, yes, obviously every few years you can go ahead and give that extension, but somebody who has the ability to play at the level that Pat Surtain did, the fact that they went ahead and added even more money on top of what he's already earning and making him a top player, by all means, well-deserved. So really, congratulations to Weatherspoon, Stingley, and Surtain. They all are incredible, incredible corners. And there's really not too much additional that needs to be added about these players. And I am confident that while we have other players that are going to move up and down this list, there is no reason to think that after the season, these same 3 players, while they may shuffle a little bit amongst themselves, I don't believe that there's any of the corners that we have previously listed on this list that are going to unseat any of these 3 as 3, 2, and 1 on this list. I think that we're going to see them kind of compete for themselves, amongst themselves for, let's say, top 10 ranking, top 10 to top 3 ranking, but they're not going to crack the top 3. These guys, barring injury, are going to be sitting at the top 3 of this list for many years to come. They have a lot of career, a lot of football ahead of them, and if they can continue their level of play, the top 3 corners on our list are certainly going to be in Hall of Fame contention, again, if they can continue doing what they have done until now. So that wraps up our top corners list. Ari, final thoughts overall about the corners, maybe a surprise name that got on here, an honorable mention of someone who didn't make the list, or something that kind of, sticks out to you overall. So final thoughts on the list, Ari.
Absolutely. I'll have one name that I really – I'll say 2 things. The first, number one, is that, we had a long debate about Devin Witherspoon, where he was going to be exactly, because when he was on the field last year, he was probably the best looking corner in the league, but he just didn't play enough games and he's super young. So, that was, so like you mentioned and alluded to, the top 3 may shuffle, but they're just phenomenal and will probably stay top 3. The other thing that I'll add is I was very tempted to put Mansour Delane on the list. Mansour Delane will be on the list next year. That's basically what I will say. And it'll be interesting to see if he is before or after Trent McDuffie on our list next year. But that's all I have to add. And I just wanted to make note that our next segment, we were planning on discussing coverage breakdowns, which is a little bit nitty gritty, and we just don't have the time to delve into today. So we will start off our next podcast delving into all of the nitty gritty of coverages 5 through 8. And it's really fascinating stuff. So please have patience and tune in next week.
Absolutely. All right. So we will move on to our favorite segment, our fan favorite, which is going to be the Guess That Number. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to that just because, we were pressed on times. We were going to discuss the AFC West. If you want, Ari, we could touch on it quickly after we go to Guess That Number. But the question is, do we want to give the AFC West the full attention that they deserve or not? So I think
I think next week we should decide to, start off with the coverage breakdown. We'll give the AFC as much coverage as possible. And then if we have time, we'll go into our receiver rankings. And if not, we could always split that up into a couple weeks and do a little spoiler for our receivers. And so we'll see that. But I definitely would like to give the AFC West its deserved time because we want to cover each team in depth. There's so much to discuss there.
Absolutely. And I think, they definitely have the potential, and it seems to be this way. They every year have the potential to be the top division in football. And even the Raiders, who we both can agree are the 4th ranked team in that division, there's plenty of room for improvement there. And, they have the potential to be a division that sends at minimum 3 teams to the playoffs next year. And again, depending on how the Raiders do, who knows, maybe we even see all 4 of the teams in the AFC West in the playoffs. Again, tall order. So I agree, Ari. Let's go ahead and we will focus the beginning of next week's episode on the film style breakdown, on the coverages like you mentioned, and then give the AFC West really the time that they go ahead and they absolutely deserve. All right, so like I mentioned, let's get to our favorite segment, the fan favorite, Guess That Number. So to remind our listeners, last week, Ari had chosen the number 76. I had chosen number 69. And Ari, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first? How would you like to do this?
I'll go first. I think you went first the last time, so
I did.
So I'll go first this time. The player that I picked, again, this is a guy who at times was one of the most dominant players at his position, but it ended up being a little bit fleeting and went away almost as quickly as it came in. He was a 6th round pick in 2010 to an NFC South team.
2010 from an NFC South team. It's interesting. When you said 76 originally, the first number that came to mind was Orlando Pace, which it's not. So that was the first place that I went. 2010. Was it possibly, and this is a wild guess at this point, it wasn't Daniel Baldridge, was it?
Who?
He was drafted in 2010. That's just why. All right, I'm going to need another hit. Give me another hit.
Absolutely. This player played 5 years with the Carolina Panthers, culminating in a Pro Bowl appearance and second-team All-Pro. Finally, after a lot of trial and tribulation, he ended up with the Dallas Cowboys, where they thought that they would unlock him for a brief period of time. He was insane, and then had happened in Carolina. His shenanigans ultimately got him out of the league at the age of 27, and he never played again in the NFL. So his career was 2010 to 2015, where his impact was insane for 2 to 3 seasons, and then never heard from again. But in 2012 and 2013, he was one of the, if not the best at his position.
I've got it on the tip of my tongue, especially since he went on to then play with the Cowboys.
That's Diana Rossini had the same exact situation. She had it on the tip of her tongue and then went on to play with some Cowboys.
Ow! Ari. Yes, we definitely need to touch, no pun intended, on that a little bit more. Okay, wasn't Anthony Davis, was it? Because he was drafted that year as well in 2010, but I don't believe he played for the NFC South. And I don't believe he played for the Cowboys, so it's not him.
Oh, it is not I told you this last week, and that's why I'm reiterating. It is a defensive player. It is not an offensive lineman. I just thought you heard me say that last week. So
right, I forgot that. I forgot that you had given that hint. Let me think. Okay, this is going to take
Anthony
me back.
Davis was a phenomenal tackle before all the injuries. I forgot about that guy.
Let me.
If Anthony Davis, this is a crazy
okay, of course. I should have gone earlier because he's gone on to going to the UFC. It's Greg Hardy.
There we go. That was my last hint because I knew as soon as I would say it, you'd get it.
Yes, I should have remembered that. That's why it was like on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, it's such a random.
I'd forgotten that you had said last week that he was a defensive player. Oh, I would have gotten that much quicker. Yeah, Greg Hardy, who went on to fight after that, which suited him.
Yeah, a nuts guy, but like when he was on, he was on. It was so one of my most favorite pass rushers to watch. We spoke about Micah Parsons last week and how much I love watching Micah Parsons. So like Greg Hardy was my Micah Parsons before Micah Parsons, where if Greg Hardy was playing, I was watching the game just to watch him. I just want to say, and then you can move on, just because you brought up Anthony Davis, and I had completely forgotten about that guy. This guy was so good as a young tackle with the 49ers, had terrible injuries, and he was drafted 11th. Terrible injuries, ended up out of the league. If that never happens, the Niners never trade for Trent Williams. So it's kind of like crazy how we mention these kind of things and how these things break down. And maybe that's an idea for a different time and a different segment where we could discuss like a what if scenario, like Anthony Davis never ends up getting hurt. Trent Williams, where does he end up going? Does he stay with the Commanders? And so on and so forth. So please let us know if you'd like to hear on some what if scenarios at a future point in time on our podcast, let us know, and we're happy to make those considerations. Ari, with that being said, it is my turn to guess, so please.
Okay, so offhand, before I give any hints, any idea which player who wears 69 I might be referring to?
I mean, I only off the top of my head know two guys that wore number 69. The obvious one from our lifetime is Jared Allen.
Yes, not him, because that was going to be the obvious one.
And then there was a famous Jets defensive end to wear number 69 as well. That is I'm blanking on. I was thinking of Klecko 73 and Gaston was 99, but I'm pretty sure they also had a very famous 69 as a defensive end. But obviously it's neither of those.
It's neither of those. That is correct.
So please provide me with some clue.
Okay, so number one, he is currently still playing in the NFL.
Okay.
Number two, he was drafted in 2020. And number three, he was traded from the team that drafted him and is playing for another team today. Any ideas?
You said 69, drafted in 2020.
Yep.
Was traded not on the team that he's currently playing. What was the third thing?
And it was he's currently playing the NFL, selected in the fourth. Oh, no, I didn't say it before. But he was selected in the fourth round, and he no longer plays for the team that drafted him. He was traded, but is active in the NFL today.
No, I didn't. Zero clue. Offense, defense?
Plays on offense.
Plays on offense. I mean, it's gonna be some offensive lineman who was drafted in 2020, who recently signed with a different team potentially. Was it Rasheed Walker? No,
it was not. No.
Ari, I have no clue.
Okay, he was drafted by the Steelers.
Drafted by the Steelers. Wow, interesting. How random of a guy are we talking about?
Not too random. He is a starting guard. He was a starting guard from the get-go of his career and was traded to the new team. He is a starting guard for them and signed an extension with them in 2024.
Is the new team the Rams?
The new team is the Rams.
Okay, fine. I can't think of the dude's name. He's one of the best guards in the league. His name currently escapes me, but I know exactly who you're talking about. As I said, was he traded to the Rams? He famously replaced their longtime guard a couple years ago, was traded to the Rams, and I just can't think of his name. So you could either give me like
so here's a crazy hint. He has the same initials as Kevin Durant.
There we go. Kevin Durant. No. Kevin Dotson. That's his name. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes,
that
Kevin Dotson.
I
selected 135th overall in the fourth round in the 2020 draft. Played for the Steelers. He actually made his debut in 2020 against my New York Football Giants, having replaced Stefan Wisniewski, I believe his name was. Wisniewski, sorry. Very long tenured starting guard for the Steelers at the time. He was ultimately he was with them, got injured, and then in August of 2023, Steelers traded him along with their 2024 fifth round draft pick and their 2025 sixth round draft pick to the LA Rams for their 2024 fourth round pick and 2025 fifth round pick. And in March of 2024, he did sign a 3-year, $48 million extension with the Los Angeles Rams. So that was our Guess That Number segment. Ari, number for next week, my friend.
I got 31 for you, Ari. I think you're going to enjoy it immensely.
And to be clear, it is not Deion Sanders.
Deion Sanders wore number 21.
Oh, sorry, it was 37. And then yes.
No, this guy wore 31, like not the entirety of his career, but like 90 something. Like he was number 31. Or
okay,
she.
So even though you're slightly going against your rules there.
What do you mean?
Well, because remember we said they have to have worn the jersey the entire time, unless like in Deion Sanders' case, we can make some cool exceptions.
No, but it's the number that he wore the whole time. And then like basically it's as follows, like Michael Vick, okay? He was iconic for the Atlanta Falcons wearing number 7. And then he wore number 1 on the Jets or number 2 and number 2 on the Steelers. So if you said Michael Vick as number 1 or number 2, that would be ridiculous. But Michael Vick as number 7, that's totally good. So if you're talking about a player who everyone knows him by this iconic number that he wore, and then in the last year of his career, went to a different team, wore a different number. I didn't even remember it off the top of my head, and I'm sure most people wouldn't. It's that kind of situation. Like imagine Jeremy Shockey, with his in his 2 years with New Orleans wore 88, where the rest of his career was 80. So Jeremy Shockey is synonymous with number 80, like that kind of thing.
All right. So in summary, you Ari are going with number 31, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm going not because you would just mention the number. It's funny that you did because I was like, I'm going with number 7. And then you're like, started talking about a number 7 of Michael Vick. So I'm going with number 7. No, it is not Michael Vick. But there were a lot of players to famously wear number 7. So I went with an interesting one. So there we go.
That's cool. I just want to add like one thing because we're talking about this is just like Aqib Talib, for example, who wore 31 on the Patriots. So he wore 25 on the Buccaneers. He wore 21 on the Broncos and 21 on the Rams. He'd be someone that I'd say like, let's not use that because it's just too crazy. He was really synonymous with 3 different number choices. And it would just be very difficult. Even in those years with the Patriots, with Malcolm Butler wearing. Anyways, you get the point. I am done talking.
All right, excellent. So that wraps up another edition of RE Squared. Guys, go ahead and give us a subscribe on YouTube. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate, comment, share. Guys, let's go ahead.
That's all about Diana Rossini's physique. That's all of what you were talking about. Nothing to do with our podcast.
All right, Ari, it's funny. Like I wanted to go a lot deeper into the whole Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel thing. You were not. You were a little bit more reluctant, and now you're throwing lots of jokes out about it. So I think it's time for us to go even deeper into and more in depth, possibly about tight ends in regards to Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel, but more on that next episode. So join us again for another edition of RE Squared next week. Guys, go ahead, follow us on Instagram. Go ahead and hit that download button on your favorite podcast platform. And of course, and I know I've said this 4 times already, go ahead and give us a subscribe on YouTube. On behalf of both Ari and I, peace. We out.